The receipt shook in my hand. Not because it meant anything at first, because I recognized the logo. It was from the grocery store 3 blocks away from my old apartment, the apartment I'd lived in before 3B. I hadn't been back there in almost 2 years. For a few seconds, I convinced myself there had to be another explanation. Maybe the receipt had been reused, maybe I'd accidentally packed it when I moved, maybe. I stopped. The date printed across the top wasn't 2 years old, it was from 6 days ago. Someone had bought groceries from the neighborhood I'd left behind, and somehow that receipt had ended up inside my kitchen. I don't remember deciding to leave. 1 minute I was staring at the paper, the next, I was already in my car. The drive felt longer than I remembered. Every traffic light seemed to stay red just long enough for my thoughts to catch up. I kept replaying the last few months in apartment 3B, the coffee mug, the perfectly folded blanket, the messages, the groceries, every tiny correction I dismissed because none of it was technically dangerous. Whoever had done it had never stolen anything, never broken anything, never threatened me. They had only improved my routines. At least, that's what I'd told myself. By the time I reached my old neighborhood, it was almost 11. Nothing had changed. The laundromat was still open, the 24-hour pharmacy still had the same flickering blue sign, even the old bakery still smelled like burnt bread drifting across the street. It felt impossible that somewhere among these familiar buildings was the beginning of everything. I parked across from my old apartment building, and just looked at it. Same cracked brick walls, same rusted fire escape, same broken porch light that the landlord always promised to replace. For a moment I wondered if I should leave, maybe ignorance really was safer. Then I noticed something. Apartment 12, my old apartment. The kitchen light was on. Someone lived there. The man who answered the door couldn't have been older than 30. He wore sweatpants, and a faded university t-shirt. He looked confused, more than annoyed. "Can I help you? I used to live here." He nodded politely, "Okay. I know this is strange, but could I ask you something?" His expression tightened. "What kind of question?" I glanced past him, into the apartment. "It'll only take a minute." He hesitated, before stepping aside, "Sure." The moment I walked inside, my chest tightened. The apartment had been renovated. Fresh paint, different furniture, new flooring. But the layout hadn't changed. I could still picture exactly where my couch had been, exactly where I'd dropped my keys after work, exactly where I'd stood the first time I noticed my coffee mug facing the wrong direction. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah." I lied. I was just remembering. He smiled awkwardly. "I've only been here about 8 months. 8 months, that meant someone else had rented it between us. Can I ask, did anything weird ever happen here?" He laughed. "Like ghosts?" "No, my stuff moving." His smile disappeared. "What do you mean?" "Things being organized." He shrugged. "Not really." My shoulders relaxed, maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe 3B really had been the beginning. Then he walked into the kitchen. I just like keeping everything straight. I followed him. And froze. Every label in the pantry faced forward. Every can sat the exact same distance from the edge of the shelf. Every spice jar was arranged from tallest to shortest. The cereal boxes formed a perfect line, even the fruit bowl was centered beneath the cabinet. That it wasn't just organized, it was familiar. Painfully familiar. "You did all this?" He looked confused. "I guess." "You guess?" "I don't know." He laughed nervously. "I've always been like this." Something in his voice told me he wasn't completely sure. Before I left, I asked one last question. "Who rented this place before you?" The landlord would know. Finding the landlord took less than 10 minutes. He still lived in the basement office, still watched old baseball games with the volume too loud. He looked up when I walked in. For half a second, I saw recognition. Then it vanished. "Can I help you? I used to rent apartment 12. "Oh." He smiled. "That was years ago. I need the names of the tenants who lived there after me." His smile disappeared. "I can't give out tenant information. Please, it's important." He folded his arms. "No." I stood there, silently. Then I pulled the receipt from my pocket, and placed it on his desk. His eyes dropped to it. Something changed. Not fear, not surprise, recognition. He knew exactly what it was. He looked back at me, much more carefully than before. "Where did you get that?" My pulse spiked. "So you know what it is?" He didn't answer. Instead, he slowly picked up the receipt, turned it over, studied the handwriting on the back. For several seconds, the room was completely silent. Then he quietly asked, "Did they leave you anything else?" The question hit me harder than if he'd admitted everything. Not who, not what happened, just, did they leave you anything else? I stared at him. "You've seen this before." He closed his eyes. For the first time since I'd met him years earlier, he looked tired. Not guilty, not scared, just exhausted. Finally, he whispered something I wasn't supposed to hear. I hoped they'd stopped. The old man didn't say another word. He simply kept staring at the receipt, like it had shown up years too late. "I don't understand," I said. "You hoped who stopped?" He looked toward the basement window, instead of at me. Outside, headlights swept across the parking lot. He waited until the car had passed, before answering. "You should go home." "No. You don't want to know. I wouldn't be standing here if that were true." He let out a slow breath. "You think someone was stalking you?" "I know they were." He shook his head. "No, they were studying you." For a second, I genuinely thought I'd misheard him. "Studying me?" He nodded. "The first time it happened. I thought it was a break-in." "The first time?" His eyes met mine. "It wasn't you, there were others." He disappeared into a storage room behind the office. I heard metal drawers opening, folders sliding, boxes being moved. When he came back, he carried a thin brown envelope held together with brittle rubber bands. It looked decades old. He placed it on the desk. I never threw these away. Inside were photocopies. Police reports, maintenance requests, letters from tenants. Every page was highlighted, every complaint sounded absurd. One tenant reported that someone had rearranged every plate in the kitchen. Another insisted the batteries in every remote control had been replaced overnight. Someone else claimed all their shirts had been ironed, while they were at work. No valuables missing, no forced entry, nothing damaged, just corrections. Tiny improvements. One report read, "My bookshelf has been reorganized by height instead of genre." I know that sounds ridiculous, but I didn't do it. Another, "Somebody sharpened every pencil in my apartment." Another, "The clocks are all synchronized now." I never synchronized them. I kept turning pages. Each one sounded more irrational than the last. Until I reached the final page. There was no complaint. Just a handwritten sentence. After a while, I couldn't remember which habits were mine anymore. I stopped reading. "Who wrote this?" The landlord answered quietly. "The only tenant who stayed." "What happened to him?" "He renewed his lease." "So? He never complained again?" That doesn't answer my question. It does. I frowned. No, it doesn't. The landlord leaned back. When someone fights it, they leave. When someone stops fighting, they stay. Silence settled between us. I looked back through the papers. There were dates spanning almost 12 years. Different handwriting, different people, different apartments. Not just apartment 12, apartment 8, apartment 3, apartment 17. Every building the landlord owned. How many? I asked. He rubbed his forehead. I stopped counting. Why didn't you call the police? He laughed. Not because it was funny, because he'd clearly been asked that before. They came. And they couldn't investigate. There was nothing to investigate. No fingerprints, no signs of entry, no missing property, no threats. He looked at me. What exactly do you tell them? Someone keeps organizing my pantry. I couldn't answer. Because that's exactly how insane it sounded. There has to be security footage. There was. You have cameras. I do now. Were there cameras back then? He nodded once. For about 3 months. What happened? They failed. All of them. Every night. Always between. He hesitated. 3:14 and 3:20. My stomach tightened. 3:14, again. I replaced them, they failed again. I hired another company, they failed again. What did the recordings show? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached into the envelope and removed a DVD in a cracked plastic case. Across the front, someone had written one date in black marker. Nothing else. You still have it? I shouldn't. You watched it? Once. What was on it? He looked physically uncomfortable. It doesn't make sense. I don't care. He swallowed. The hallway camera worked until exactly 3:14, then the picture froze. For 6 minutes. When it came back, he stopped. Every apartment door on the floor was open. I felt my skin prickle. Someone opened them. No, there wasn't anyone. The hallway was empty. But every door was standing open. He slid the DVD toward me. I've spent years trying to forget that recording. You can have it, I don't want it anymore. I slipped the disc into my jacket. Who else knows about this? He looked at me for a long moment. Then quietly said, one person. Who? A woman named Evelyn Marsh. Who is she? She was the first. The first victim? He nodded. The first person who ever came back asking questions. Did she find anything? His expression changed. For the first time all night. I saw genuine fear. She found too much. Where is she now? I don't know. You just said she came back. She did. When? 7 years ago. And? She left me a voicemail. What did it say? He didn't answer. Instead, he opened his phone, scrolled for several seconds, pressed play. The recording crackled with age. A woman's exhausted voice filled the room. If anyone comes asking about this, tell them to stop looking. Heavy breathing, traffic in the background. Then. The worst part isn't realizing someone is watching you. A long silence. It's realizing they've been deciding who you become. The recording ended. No goodbye, no explanation, just dead air. What happened to her? I never heard from her again. You never looked? I did, 4 months. Nothing. No address, no employment, no family. It was like she stopped existing. As I stood to leave, the landlord grabbed my wrist. His grip was surprisingly firm. "I need you to promise me something." "What?" "If you find Evelyn." He paused. "Don't tell her you found the archive." I stared at him. "The archive?" Realizing what he'd just said, he slowly released my wrist. His face drained of color. Neither of us spoke. He hadn't meant to say that. There was an archive, and he knew exactly where it was. The landlord realized what he'd said, the same instant I did. "The archive?" He didn't answer. Instead, he stood so abruptly that his chair tipped over behind him. "You need to leave. You just said there was an archive." I said nothing. "You literally dash." I said leave. His voice wasn't angry, it was terrified. 5 minutes later, I was sitting in my car with the DVD on the passenger seat. The voicemail still echoed in my head. "They've been deciding who you become." It sounded impossible, ridiculous. Until I thought about the last 6 months. When was the last time I'd actually chosen something? The coffee brand I'd switched to, because it tasted better. The walking route I'd started taking, because it felt faster. The grocery store I'd begun using, because the parking was easier. Every decision had felt like mine. But now, I couldn't remember why I'd made any of them. I started the engine. Then stopped. There was no way I was going home. If someone had been inside my apartment before, if someone had left that receipt, then whoever they were already knew where I lived. Instead, I drove to the only 24-hour electronics store still open. Bought an external DVD drive, a cheap laptop, and parked beneath an empty office complex, where the Wi-Fi reached the parking lot. I didn't want to watch the recording at home. The timestamp began at 3:12:48. Grainy black and white footage. One narrow apartment hallway, 6 doors. Nothing unusual. 3:13:11. A tenant walked past carrying laundry. Door 11 opened, someone stepped inside. Normal. 3:13:54. Silence. 3:14:00. The image froze. Exactly as the landlord had described. The timestamp kept moving. 3:14:01. 3:14:02. 3:14:03. The hallway never changed, like someone had taken a photograph. For 6 minutes. Then. 3:20:01. The video jumped. Every apartment door was open. Exactly 6 doors, standing wide open. The hallway was empty. No movement, no shadows, no people entering, no people leaving. Just, open doors. I leaned closer to the screen. Something felt wrong. Not impossible, wrong. I rewound it, played it again, then again. On the 4th viewing, I noticed it. The hallway clock. Before the freeze, it showed 3:14. After the freeze, it still showed 3:14. Only the digital timestamp had advanced, the clock hadn't moved. Someone knocked on my driver's window. I nearly dropped the laptop. A security guard. "You all right?" "Yeah. You've been sitting here an hour." I lost track of time. He glanced at the screen. Creepy movie. I forced a smile. Something like that. As he walked away, I looked back at the recording. The laptop battery indicator flashed. 3%. I'd bought it brand new. I closed it. Something about that recording made me want distance. The next morning, I searched for Evelyn Marsh. Nothing. No social media, no voter records, no professional profiles, no obituary. It was as if she'd never existed. Then I remembered something. The landlord had said she came back 7 years ago, not that she'd lived there 7 years ago. She'd returned. That meant there had to be older records. Libraries, newspapers, property archives. The city records office occupied an old courthouse downtown. Dust covered everything. The clerk looked like she'd worked there since typewriters were standard equipment. I'm looking for a tenant. Address? I gave it. Name? Evelyn Marsh. She disappeared into the archives. When she returned, she carried a ledger, instead of a computer printout. Apartment 8. She slid it toward me. Move-in date, move-out date, employment, emergency contact, everything. Except, the emergency contact line had been crossed out. Not scribbled, carefully cut away with a razor blade. I frowned. Who edits city records? They don't. Then. She leaned closer. I've only seen this once before. When? She pointed farther down the ledger. Another tenant, another apartment, another razor-cut rectangle. Different year, different person, same missing contact. Who was that? She read the faded name. Daniel Mercer. The name meant nothing to me. Until she added, he came in here asking about Evelyn. When? About 6 years ago. What happened? She hesitated. He found what he was looking for. And? He never came back. Before leaving, I asked for copies. She shook her head. They disappeared. What? The originals. I scanned them years ago. Can I have the scans? She typed for several seconds. Her face changed. They're gone. Deleted? I don't know, they just. She refreshed the screen. Aren't here anymore. As I walked out of the courthouse, rain had started falling. I barely noticed. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered immediately. Silence. Then breathing. Slow, steady. Not threatening, just listening. Who is this? Nothing. I know you're there. Another breath. Then a calm male voice. Not distorted, not rushed, almost polite. You shouldn't be looking for Evelyn. The call disconnected. I stood frozen on the courthouse steps. The phone was still in my hand when another notification appeared. Not a call, an email. No sender, no subject. One attachment. A photograph. It had clearly been taken through a long lens. I recognized the courthouse entrance. The timestamp showed 2 minutes earlier. In the center of the image. I was standing exactly where I was now. Looking up at the building. The photo had been taken while I was inside. At the bottom, typed in small black letters, "You're asking the wrong questions." I looked up instinctively. Across the street, a man in a gray raincoat folded a newspaper, turned, and walked away without ever looking back. I ran after him. Cars forced me to stop halfway across the road. By the time I reached the opposite sidewalk, he was gone. But lying beside the curb was something he'd left behind. A library card. On the back, written in neat blue ink, were 6 words, "Maps are kept in the basement." I turned the card over. It belonged to the city's central library. And suddenly, I understood. The archive wasn't hidden in some abandoned warehouse, it was hiding somewhere people walked past, every single day. The library looked almost abandoned by the time I arrived. Rainwater dripped from the stone archway above the entrance. The building closed in 40 minutes, just enough time. Or so I thought. The woman at the front desk barely looked up. "Can I help you?" I slid the library card across the counter. "I think someone dropped this." She glanced at it. Her expression didn't change. But instead of placing it in the lost and found, she quietly slipped it into her pocket. "Thank you." That was it. No questions, no checking the name, nothing. I turned to leave. Then stopped. "Excuse me." She looked up. "Is there a basement?" A pause. "Staff only." "What do you keep down there?" "Maps." Exactly the word from the card. I didn't wait. The moment she disappeared behind the circulation desk, I walked deeper into the building. Old libraries are designed like mazes. Shelves taller than people, corners you can't see around, entire floors where footsteps disappear into carpet. At the back, behind local history, I found a gray metal door. No sign, only a keypad. Locked. I turned away, and noticed something taped beneath the fire extinguisher beside it. A folded maintenance schedule. One line had been circled. Basement access, 8:45 p.m. I checked my phone. 8:41. I hid between two bookshelves. 4 minutes later, footsteps echoed across the empty floor. Not one person, 3. The front desk woman, a janitor, and a man in a navy blazer carrying a cardboard archive box. The woman typed a code. The keypad flashed green. The heavy door unlocked. They disappeared downstairs. The door closed again. It didn't lock immediately. I counted. 1, 2, 3. Before the latch fully engaged, I slipped through. Concrete stairs, cold air. No sound, except humming fluorescent lights. The basement stretched farther than the library above. Rows of compact rolling shelves, thousands of document boxes. Each shelf labeled only with years. 1978. 1979. 1980. 1981. 1982. Nothing unusual. Until I reached the last aisle. The labels changed. No years, just numbers. 1, 2, 3, 147. 148. 149. I kept walking. Eventually. 312. 313. 314. My breathing stopped. Shelf 314. Every box on it was black. No labels, no names, only white barcodes. Voices. Close. I ducked behind a shelf. The man in the blazer spoke first. Late progression. Another voice answered. Female. The previous subject adapted faster. Subject. Not patient, not tenant, subject. They walked past my aisle. Neither looked around. Neither seemed worried someone could be there. As if no one ever came this far. When they disappeared, I stepped toward shelf 314. One box was slightly open. Inside, photographs. Hundreds of them. Not of one person, of dozens. Everyday moments. Someone reading on a train, someone cooking dinner, someone buying flowers, someone waiting at a traffic light. Every photograph had notes written beneath it. Routine stable. Preference reinforced. Correction accepted. My hands shook as I turned another page. A grocery receipt, a coffee loyalty card, a pharmacy receipt, a folded shopping list. Exactly the kind of things that had appeared in my apartment. Then I found a folder. White, thicker than the others. Across the tab. Subject 314. I opened it. The first photograph hit me like a punch. Me. Standing outside my office. 5 years ago. The date was printed beneath it. 3 years before apartment 3B. The next photo, me at a gas station. The next, me moving into my previous apartment. The next, me buying my first coffee maker. Every photograph carried handwritten observations. Prefers aisle seating. Responds positively to routine reinforcement. Minor resistance to environmental correction. Increase interval before next contact. I kept flipping pages faster. There were hundreds. Birthdays, vacations, family dinners, my college graduation. Photos no stranger should have been able to take. Some had clearly been shot from rooftops. Others through restaurant windows. One had been taken through my parents' living room curtains. I couldn't breathe. They hadn't started watching me in apartment 3B. They had been watching me through half my life. A final envelope rested inside the folder. Marked only, completion review. I unfolded the page. One sentence. Subject no longer distinguishes intrinsic habits from implanted behaviors. Proceed to awareness phase. Awareness phase. Everything that had happened in apartment 3B, the notes, the receipt, the messages. None of it had been the experiment. It had been the evaluation. They weren't trying to change me anymore, they were measuring whether I would notice. A floorboard creaked behind me. I turned. The man in a navy blazer stood at the end of the aisle. Hands in his pockets. Calm. No weapon, no anger, just curiosity. You weren't supposed to find this until next month. His voice was almost conversational. As expected, he continued, you skipped 3 intermediate steps. I stared at him. Who are you? He smiled faintly. The wrong question. He nodded toward the folder in my hands. Did you find what you came for? What is this? A record. Of what? Of who you became. I backed away. You've been following me for 5 years. He tilted his head. No, we've been observing you for 5 years. Why? Because people are surprisingly easy to rewrite. I ran. Not because I thought I could beat him, because he didn't chase me. That frightened me more. I burst through the stairwell, into the library, and out into the rain. No alarms, no shouting, no footsteps behind me. Almost as if they expected me to leave. The police arrived 20 minutes later. I led them back to the basement. Shelf 314 was gone. The entire aisle had been renumbered. No black boxes, no folders, no photographs. Just old atlases, and city planning maps. The officers searched for nearly an hour. Nothing. One of them finally looked at me with tired eyes. Sir, are you sure you're feeling all right? I almost argued. Then I noticed something. My hands. Without thinking, I had aligned the 3 evidence photographs on the table. Perfectly. Equal spacing, edges squared. The detective hadn't asked me to. Nobody had. I slowly pushed them apart. My fingers moved back. Automatically. Straightening them again. I froze. I wasn't choosing to do it. It simply felt correct. I drove home just before dawn. The apartment was exactly as I'd left it. No notes, no receipts, no messages. I laughed. A short, exhausted laugh. Maybe it really was over. I walked into the kitchen. Set my keys beside the fruit bowl. Then paused. The keys looked crooked. Without thinking, I rotated them until they were parallel with the edge of the counter. Then I centered the fruit bowl, adjusted the coffee jar, turned every label forward. I stood there for several seconds, before realizing what I'd done. The kitchen looked exactly like the photographs in the archive. Exactly like apartment 3B. Exactly like apartment 12. Exactly like every victim's home. My phone buzzed. No ringtone, just the screen lighting up. There was no notification. Only the Notes app. Already open. One new line had appeared. Observation concluded. Subject maintained corrections without external stimulus. Below it, another line slowly appeared. Not typed all at once, one word at a time. Thank you, for proving the method works. I stared at the screen until it went dark. I never found out who they were. I stopped looking. Not because I was afraid of finding them, because I finally understood something far worse. By the time you realize someone has been quietly shaping the person you are, there may not be enough of the original you left to bring back.